And we are gonna bring this car back to life here. Let me set up the cameras, set up the microphones, and let's fire this bad boy up. Now we're gonna hit the ignition. Woo! Hi everybody, my name is Dan Dulac and welcome to my channel where I am building a V10 powered Ultima Evolution convertible. This is episode number 47. If you missed any of the previous episodes, be sure to go check those out. It's been a hell of a journey to getting where we are today. And speaking of today, we're gonna give you guys a major update on this build. If you're new to my channel, welcome. You are joining at the right time. We're getting closer to the finish line of this build. If you're returning to my channel, thank you for coming back. Hopefully there's a nice update in store for you today. And it's been a while since my last video, man. Life's been crazy, but no excuses. We're gonna share with a major update with you today. And a little hint, we're gonna refire this thing. It's been since last summer that I refired the engine in this. I've got all the wiring done, all the electronics done. On this episode, we're gonna refire this engine to make sure I got all the programming and the circuits reprogrammed properly. So, not a lot of sexiness going on, given that there's a lot of wiring going on in this one, but I hope you enjoy it. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. All right guys, after a lot of tedious work, I finally got that dash done. I'm gonna show you here in a minute, but man, what a job it was. It probably took me a good, 8 hours just to fit the Alcantara on the main dash part, get everything trimmed up and fit. It didn't come out perfect. Given this is my first time doing any type of upholstery work like this, I think I'm satisfied with it. Could it be better? Yes, but I think as you'll see, I think it's totally fine. I did discover, so I used, and I forgot about this, but I used an exterior Alcantara for the dash. Given this car is a convertible, if at any point it ever did get rained on or wet, this will wear a lot better given it is purpose-built for exterior. But as a result, the material is a little thicker and it doesn't stretch really at all. Some of the interior Alcantara I have stretches a little bit more, which is a little bit more forgiving. But having said that, I think it came out pretty good, so let's take a look. All right, here is the top side. Really no wrinkles at all. Came out really, really nice, perfect. I've got the gauge bezel here on there. And I've got the seams lined up. So the seams here along this front edge came out pretty good. And you're gonna see in a few places I've got some wrinkles. So kind of a minor wrinkle right here, because I do have padding underneath this as well as the Alcantara. So there is some nice cushion to this, which I really like the feel of it. It's awesome. But the main areas of wrinkle really were down here around my heating vent here. You could see there's some wrinkle here. I really tried to glue that. It's just super tricky given it's an inside compound curve. Really tricky, and again, this material is not forgiving at all as it relates to stretch. But in general, I think it came out really nice. This corner does have a little tiny wrinkle, but this was the second side I did, so I learned some things as I went along here. But I think it came out really nice. Again, not perfect, but hey, hand-built car like this, it's not going to be perfect. And given this was my first time doing any type of upholstery work, I'm pretty happy with it. You're going to notice a couple other things as well. These heating vents. So this one on the passenger side, I painted black. Those were originally silver. They're originally this. Again, these are out of an Audi TT. But you can see when I had the silver ones in place, it was just too much contrast. I thought it was too disruptive visually, so I wanted the heater vents to blend a little bit more, and I think that suited perfect. That's a satin black. It kind of goes with the satin finish on the shifter bezel here. So I think it came out pretty nice. So that was the other kind of last minute change I made as well, was change up the color of the heater bezels. So next up on this, we have got to get my wiring all coordinated here. This rat's nest of wiring. Again, a lot of this was temporary as I was getting the car started and running for the first time. So now I've got to kind of route the wiring to the center of the dash area where all the buttons and so forth, the gauge bezel and so forth, and then put some wiring loom on it, clean it up, and get it ready to install the dash on top here. I am in the middle of kind of rerouting the appropriate circuits to meet up with the various dash components there. It looks like a mess. There's a method to my madness. But one of the things I need to do here is I need to find a place to put the OBD2 plug. So this is the OBD2 connector as well as the connector for the dash, the Motec C127, and the PDM. And so what I've done here is just create just this little bracket here. This is the UTC connector, the USB to CAN connector that allows you to link up to the PDM. And then the C127 display connector will be here. And then the OBD2 connector I'll plug here as well. So this piece goes right over here. That will go just like that. And I will rivet it up from the underside into the crossbars. And that will be under the dash, out of the way, but easily accessible for the various plugs. So we're going to get this in place, and then we can start putting the wiring, getting the wiring loom and the length of the wires all set to exactly the way I want it so it's nice and clean. So not a very sexy job, but let's get after this. Let's get this cleaned up, and so we could start to fit the dash for hopefully one of the very last times. So there we go. So we've got the OBD2 connector right here. This is the port for the C127 comms plug here. So to program the C127, you use a Cat5 cable. That plugs in there. This is the USB
to CAN connector. So this gives me all communications to the PDM, so I can program that. So nice little panel. So this will all be obviously accessible from underneath the passenger side footwell. And you can also see here from the underside the terminal strip for the grounding terminal here. This will make it easy to access if I ever need to. And then of course, I've cleaned up the area where the Motec PDM is, the harness, put some wire loom on there, cleaned it up nice, and then I have a cover, this cover right here, that will go over and mount up for a footrest and cover up all those electronics. So we're getting pretty close here. We just got to finish up the finishing loom here and we'll be good to go.
All right, guys, I have been at this wiring for literally 3 days straight. I'm effectively creating my own chassis wiring harness. I've used all but 2 of the PDM30 switched digital inputs. It's got like 16 digital inputs, obviously 30 power outputs. I've used all the inputs and outputs aside from 2. So made full use of it. I've got the C127. It's got 4 auxiliary outputs as well. I'm using those to power the exhaust flaps, which is going to come. I'm going to build a valved exhaust system, which is going to be pretty cool. That's going to wait later on once the car is running and on the road, but putting the electronics in place for that, as well as the washer fluid pump and a few other things that I ran out of outputs on the PDM30, so I'm using the auxiliary outputs on the C127, which is really helpful. So anyways, let me show you where I'm at, and it's not very pretty to look at yet. I'm pretty much done all the circuits. All I've got to do now is just finish up the loom. Put some nice corrugated loom throughout to wrap up the harness, clean it up, and we should be good to go and ready to fit the front cowl on and get all the switches wired in and refire this thing. So let me show you where we're at. All right, so here is the chassis. And again, all my attention has been on this cockpit area. And again, it's a bit of a mess now, but I've got all my major wiring looms here. I'll finish it up nice. I've got a grounding terminal right here, so all my grounds are nice and clean right into this terminal. I've got all the dash switches ready to go. This is for the Motec 8 button. This is for the heater control. And I've got the master kill switch here, keyed ignition switch right here. So pretty simple from a dash setup standpoint. I've got the side marker lights all wired, so this will be for the side indicator lamps, as well as the powered mirrors are all in there. I've created some terminals here. If you remember on the cowl over here, I've got some jump start terminals as well, so those will be hooked up to the main cables here. This feeds directly to the battery. And then I've got these 2 10 gauge wires here, and those route all the way over in through the side luggage bin, all the way over here. And this is a charge port for my LiPo battery charger, which is easily accessible right there. So I've put quite a bit of thought into this. I think we're good. I've got all the wires run for the headlights, the turn signals, the daytime running lights, high beams, etc. So these are all run, so when I get the front on, I can start to finish those up. And I've got the same kind of wires just hanging out the back for the rear lights as well. So not too bad. I think next up is just to get all this wiring finished up, put some loom on it. I've got, obviously, this is 3/4 inch, and I've got a bunch over here. I've got some 1 inch split loom there. I've also got some of this nylon stuff. I might use this instead. We'll see. I don't know. It's all gonna be really hidden, so I'm just doing it really to clean it up. So we'll see how that goes. So I've got my Raptor all wired up here. So this is for all the wireless buttons on the steering wheel. So these are all switched circuits here. So that's all loomed in nice to the main harness. I think we're in decent shape here. All right, guys, I've got the wired all put back together. I took the switches off from the dash and put them just temporarily there. So before I put the front cowl on, I can test all the electronics, make sure I got everything right. So I'm gonna show you where we're at here, and we are gonna bring this car back to life here, see if we can get this thing to fire. After reconfiguring the PDM electronics, I kind of reprogrammed some of the circuits, obviously put a lot more switches in place, so we're gonna test that now. Let me show you what I got, and then we're gonna try to test fire this thing, so let's do it. All right, I've got my PDM set up here. Kind of got all my circuits, output pins laid out, all my functions. Everything should be good to go here. I've got all the wiring here. You can see pretty much done. I've still got to put the finish wiring loom on here, but it is all in place. So I've got my keypad just sitting here, my ignition key just sitting here, and everything else is pretty much wired in. The display is just sitting here. It's plugged in. Got my steering wheel in place. That's plugged in. So we're just testing all the switches and so forth, and we are going to see if we can get this thing to fire. So let me set up the cameras, set up the microphones, and let's fire this bad boy up. All right, let's fire this bad boy up. First thing we're going to do is turn the ignition key on. This will basically power the keypad, the main body electronics here. So that is on. You should see the Motec come on, the display. Yes. And now we're going to hit the ignition. And I can hear the fuel pump turn on. Come over here, check my circuits. All the main ignition circuits are active. Now, let's hit the start button, see what happens. Yes. Instantaneous. Woo! Yes. Sounds super healthy. That is awesome. Give her a few revs here. See what she sounds like. That sounds incredible. So, all right, well, let's get to, here, let me shut it down. All right, so what we're gonna do now is we're gonna get the rest of the wire loom all done up, all around the dash area, so we can get ready to put this front cowl, front dash area on for the final time. So now that we've tested that the engine runs, everything's good there, we could test some of the switches, which shouldn't be a problem, and then we'll get this thing start to get buttoned up here on the front. I've still got to install my rotary can keypad. That will go on the center console, but that's easy to program, and we'll get that going. Then the next thing I need to do is test my Huracan transmission control unit. If you remember many episodes ago, I had to reverse engineer the wiring to figure out where this would plug into, given that now I'm running a new mechatronic in the transmission that's Huracan that does not have the immobilizer in it. So I've had to basically convert the ECU and the TCM to a Huracan. That's just a code update, but I had to figure out the wiring for that thing. So I think I've got that in place, so we're gonna test that next. In the meantime, we're gonna get all this buttoned up, get it cleaned up with some nice loom, test some of the switches, and we'll be good to go. So let's get to it. All right, I've got this harness pretty much loomed up here, all the way from the back bulkhead, along the passenger side, up into the dash area, and then you can see along the crossbar there on the dash, I've got the loom. I've still got some cleaning up to do over here in this area, but that's just a little bit of tidying up. And then on the underside, I've got a little bit of loom I still have to do, but the big stuff is cleaned up here, which is really what I was after. So I've also got the major harness loomed up over here. You can see that along there. So nice and clean. That's kind of the way I want it. Again, that's all going to be hidden by the dash area, but I know it's there, so I want to make it clean. And it's still easy to get access to wires from underneath if I ever have to crawl under there and tap into a circuit, add a circuit, whatever it is. It's still easy with that split loom. Makes it pretty easy to get at the wiring. So guys, that's gonna be it for this video. So I was hoping to get this cowl on the front end here in this video, but I've got a work week travel trip scheduled, so I want to get a video out before I head out on the road again. So this is gonna have to wait for the next one. So guys, until then, we'll see you next time.